Good day, everyone. Good hello, investors. Thank you for joining me for another episode about real estate investing, of course. Last week, I took the time and went through the intake form that we have before we speak with every investor. Every time someone wants to work with us, we ask to take 2-3 minutes to complete an intake. And the intake doesn't ask too many personal questions. It just asks you a few things about real estate investing. And what I like to do every once in a while is go through the intake form, which, by the way, I have thousands of lines already completed over the years. This is something I've been doing for probably 10 plus years. So I have, I can't remember how many, but lot of like well over 1,000, I think well over 1,200 lines of completed intake from investors. And I like to go through those lines and see what people are asking, what people are kind of thinking about before they meet with us. One of the things that came up, and this was the trigger for this conversation, is things that are related to property management. Now, if you go back to different episodes, I spent quite a bit of time talking about property management and how to work with property managers, etc. But I wanted to take a time and actually bring an expert to talk to us about primarily two topics that I think are there's a lot of misconception or knowledge gap about them. One is on the screening process of tenants, and the other is on the eviction part of the tenants. So actually not on the core management, what happens in between, but actually on both the points of start and possible ending or termination on our behalf of a lease with a tenant. So to do that, I wanted to bring someone who has been dealing with management on all aspects of it for many, many years and in a large scale in a number of properties. And that's my very good friend, Ron Hodges from Nashville, Tennessee, that we have been working together for quite a few good years, right?
Many years now.
Many years now, and a lot of transactions together. Ron and I speak routinely. Every few months, we get on the phone to talk about general real estate stuff, general property management stuff. I always tell him I wish I can record those conversations. So here we're doing it right now. Ron, my friend, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me. Look forward to a healthy discussion.
Good. So Ron, before we start, why don't you kind of give a little bit of introduction about yourself, about your background, so people understand where your vast knowledge is coming from. I think that will bring a lot of a strong foundation for this conversation.
Well, as you know, Danny, I've been doing this for about 35 years now. So it's didn't start up last week or at the last peak wave to get into a new business. So we've been consistently in this for several years and have developed a good strategy, a good team that takes care. I came from a service background in the hotel business all those years ago. So our business is built on not only serving tenants, but owners. And because we believe that it all starts and ends with service. So that's kind of the basis of how we deal with things. And we look at everything from an owner's point of view, because I own real estate and have owned more in years past than I do now, but I want to treat your investment like I would treat mine. So that's the foundation of how we started and how we continue.
It's good. Good. That's very good. So Ron, when we during the conversation we had over the years, one of the things that I saw that's coming up again and again and again, and remember, we're talking to investors. Not all the investors that I'm hearing this are necessarily our investors in the sense of the same profile of property that we buy. We have very clear criteria what we like, and I think that by itself creates a lot of filterization of, or actually exclusion of potential problems that we don't really see or rarely see. But let's talk about in general, as a property management company, when you have a property, you're about to list it, what is the process of making sure we're getting the right person coming into our house to begin with?
Well, I will start by telling you we probably turn down more tenants than we actually rent to because we believe in solving as many problems on the front end through screening, so we have a successful back end. Now, does that mean we're 100% successful? No, no one is. But we limit your liability, our liability, as much as we can by going through, the basics, which is, do they make enough money? How's their rental history? But we also go through and understand that uh, because we're a licensed company, we've got a higher standard we want to adhere to. So we look at, do they owe a previous landlord? Have they ever been convicted? Have they ever been evicted? Uh, so all of those are red flags that would say, yeah, maybe we shouldn't rent to that person. Do they meet our minimum standards? So we have to be consistent with every prospective tenant in order to give the investor the best possible tenant going in. So, and usually what happens if there is a hiccup during, the lease term, they're solid enough. We can work with them and get through it without having to evict them. But if we do our homework and we do have to evict them, we've got all the data we need to make that transition to remove them from the property. And our attorneys are such that they are set up to start the collection process for any outstanding debt, whether it be damages, rent, whatever, immediately on that day. And they've got a pretty high success rate.
So let's talk about something that I see coming up, or two things that are coming up quite a bit. And let's keep it as a general conversation. There are always going to be nuances or specific situations, but let's not talk about the 20% specific situation or special situation, but the 80% of the majority. The two things that I see quite a lot are the following. The first is I'm the owner, you're my property manager, we have a signed agreement, you are in the process of listing my house, and I am not fully transparent to the people that are coming into my house. Maybe I should say, maybe even to the point that I can or cannot approve that person. And I don't know who they are. It's my house. I don't know who they are. And I am not in the position to, many times, to even say yes or no. That creates a lot of, a lot of dissonance between I'm the owner, I'm in control, and then, but wait, how come you put someone that without asking my permission, specifically?
Well, and that goes back to this world called fair housing. Fair housing is where the government has set up certain rules, and we have to be consistent within those rules with the owners and the tenants. For instance, credit reports. We can't give you, as the investor or owner, a copy of the credit report. We can discuss it with you, but I can't give you physically that report. It's against fair housing. And things like that. So there are rules that we're constrained by that we can have conversations with you about, but we can't give you everything. But part of what we do, and it's a trust factor back and forth with each owner, that we're going to give you the best information as we get it on this tenant, their background, their credit. And if they meet our box, which is income, they're not on a national registry, which would be everything from terrorism to national sexual database or something like that, which are non-starters, then we can have a discussion about each one. Most people we have a relationship with, and they understand, and we talk to them through it from the beginning. And unless there's something that jumps out of that box that we need their approval, if they've got a dog and we generally don't do dogs, but they're probably a good tenant. We may say, Danny, they've got an old dog that's 35 pounds. Do you want to accept that? Then we can adhere to a change. But if we have to stay within rules and treat everybody the same and fairly. Now there are options. Again, the dog is a good option to say you can in writing tell me accept this guy's lower credit score or this dog, and then that would be something that you chose to do, not us. So we try to mold everything and look at everything with an open mind, but realizing that we have to stay within that fair housing uh, box, because while some owners or investors say, well, this is my house, I want to do it this way, unfortunately, legally, we can't do it that way. And we try to explain that and walk them through it, and have even got the attorney on the phone from time to time, which they don't like to do, but they will for us, to give them a little more detailed explanation.
So let me clarify that point for a second. You're saying there's some things I can do as an owner or get away with, so to speak. I don't know if that you will not be able to do. When I say an owner, I mean when I self-manage, self-list, when I don't use a professional such as yourself, and I'm going about it by myself. Although some people do that. There may be some things I can do, either get away with, that you would probably won't be able. Is that what I mean?
Yeah, if you have under a certain amount of properties, then you're not bound by the same rules. We're a licensed insured agency that manage, as you know, several hundred properties. So we're bound by all of those things. Now, the fair housing, nobody can really go outside of if you're a licensed company. As a independent owner, if you manage your house in your city, then you're can do almost what you want within fair housing or your local counties or states rules, because there are rules for all of us. We're just governed by fair housing.
And the rules you're talking about, are those mainly federal rules, state rules, county rules? How many levels of rules do we have to follow? Or is it
all of those? All of those, because say here, Davidson County is a million population, let's call it. Their rules are different than, say, a small outlying county such as Manchester or Coffee County, and they're not governed by the exact same fair housing laws because of the size of the county. So we have to do things different there. So they're all a little different. If an investor owns something in Davidson, there's going to be nuances on an eviction or how we have to go about collection or those type things. They're going to be different in, say, Coffee County, because they don't have the same exact rules.
Now, when someone applies,
and that's federal.
Now, when someone applies for, you said at the beginning of the conversation that you actually turn away more prospect than actually accept. So if someone applies, they go through some application, I would assume. That application probably includes a little bit of a background check or credit check and stuff like this. When you reject someone, do you have to send them a letter, notification? Do you have to tell them why they were rejected, or it just has to?
That is correct. Thank you for even reminding me. Yes, they have to be given a reason. It has to be done in writing. It has to be done in a certain time period. And so it can be from not enough income, bad references, whatever the case is. We have to send them a denial letter, make it part of their file. And that way it is it's all documented. So if something were to come back later, we have it on file.
So a prospect will get a letter and they will tell him not just denied, but the reasons, and the reason needs to be somewhat of a specific one, cannot be, and
Can't be we don't like you. It has to be, either your income or your bad report or, whatever it is. But there's there's a such thing. We can't do anything that's discriminatory or considered redlining in the real estate world. Some of you may have heard of that, but so it has to be for a reason. And like I said, and because we have stated policies on income and how all that works, the only way to get around that, if there is, sometimes we can get the owner to say, I'll lower it this time, and they have to do it in writing. So we as a company have document that says, Danny said, we're going to waive the whatever this time, and that'll be your decision.
Okay.
That gets a little confusing because it kind of jumps around, but we try not to do it, to be honest with you, because it does get confusing.
Can you give an example for that so it makes it a little bit more tangible what you mean by the owner?
Well, our policy is, I'm going to use the dog example. That's always the easiest.
Right.
Is that if you want to accept a dog, our policy is nothing over 35 pounds, fully grown. It's easy. But on the front end, you can say, I don't want a dog. But if you do, that's our policy.
As the owner.
As the owner. But someone, Cole may come in and wants to move in. He's got great credit, great rental history, but his dog is a 60-pound lab. And he wants me to ask Danny for a waiver. So at that point, you could say, I'll take a larger dog.
I see. Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
We try to stay as consistent as possible because it's easier for us. We've got these parameters and standards set because they usually work better for the owners as well.
So those standard set of parameters you're talking about, they're probably company-wide parameters. I mean, there could be another property management company has a different set of parameters, but that talks about income, credit score, etc. Certain pointers they have to meet in order to get accepted, right?
That's correct.
And what is your ability as a company owner to change those parameters one way or another without jeopardizing yourself or your license?
Well, as long as we do it system-wide going forward, I can't say, Bob, here, we're going to let you go at 550 and you're going to go at 625, and all of a sudden it's willy-nilly, so to speak, Southern term, we can't do that. It has to be pretty consistent. Are there exceptions? We try not to make them. Okay. But because we tweak everything along the way to make it as consistent as we can and as fair as we can for the best outcome for our investors.
But let's talk about the exception for a second. Let's just say your credit score standard, parameter, like you mentioned, like you call it, is 620. All right, let's just mention that.
Sure.
I'm an owner. My house has been sitting vacant for a month now. We have a somewhat strong prospect, but they have, let's say 570, but everything else is fine. Income is wise and no issues. Only one thing, I'm 570. Are you allowed to accept them? Can I kind of override your decision? Or am I kind of, let's just say, I'm a little bit nervous and you're saying I can't take this person because they're not meeting my all the check boxes. And I'm like, but it's in my best interest,
Well, on the ground here, we probably have a little better feel for best interest. I'll start with that. But what we do, and we do quite often when the need comes up, if the rental history is great, and they've everything, all the boxes are checked, and their credit score is 570. Well, the reason for their credit score may be all medical bills. They've had some catastrophic thing in their life. If that's something that we will take a look at and call and say, Danny, this is a great tenant. They're not. It's not that they're not paying their cell phone bill, or they hadn't paid rent on time. They've got a good job. They had a catastrophic issue, and they've got some medical bills that's drug them down. And we would recommend that you allow us to do that. Medical's about the only way, because that's something none of us control, is our health. We could all exercise more, but those things we look at from the human perspective and try to understand how to be more open with the owners about.
Gotcha. Okay. So so let's move on to the next topic, and that's the topic of section of evictions. So
Okay.
before we dive into the evictions in more detail, a little bit more details, if you can just say, generally speaking, how the eviction process looks like in terms of maybe timelines, notices, from the point of something triggers the evictions all the way to the point that, let's just say, we went through the full eviction process of, having the sheriff go out or something like that. And then we can maybe trim it a little bit.
Sure. Well, let's start with back to county state things. Where I am, Rutherford or Davidson, larger counties, the way our lease reads, if they're late, they're automatically on notice. We don't have to give them written notice beyond that. We give them to the 15th, then we work through the process, and it takes about 45 days start to finish on a total eviction. If they live in a smaller rural county, then we have to give them a written 14-day notice. So that's kind of that law thing we talked about earlier. So those are the nuances on that. So we have to give them the notice in writing, and we do that on the 6th of every month, whether they pay on the 7th or not. But so we're covered.
Is that a physical knock on the door, or it can be by some sort of a mail format? Like send over.
We email it and mail it.
Okay. You don't have to physically go to the door and knock on the door and give it to them.
No. And it's from the date of the mail. It doesn't matter if they get it 4 days later. It's from the date of the letter.
Gotcha.
And that's one of the things when we talk about in the screening process, we look at to minimize these things. Have they ever been evicted? Do they owe a previous landlord? That's a deep dive into their background that eliminates a lot of evictions. That's why, knock on wood, we don't really have, as a percentage, a large amount of evictions. The process is pretty simple for us. We give it to the attorney. The attorney makes the court date, takes them to court, starts the collection process. So I just got, this is just a side note you'll get a kick out of. I got a letter from my attorney. I'm sitting here now that this collection was from April 8th of 2000. I got a check on this week or last week.
For something that happened in 20 plus years ago?
Yeah.
Is there an interest?
Huh?
Is there are you collecting interest?
No, I don't think they let us collect interest. But so this owner has got his, they're usually very good about getting it pretty quickly, but it doesn't go away, is my point. Once they're in that collection process, they stay after it because they're going to get paid whenever they do collect it. And I'm talking about the attorneys. But just to show you that if unfortunately we have to get into an eviction process and it goes all the way through, there's light at the end of the tunnel if you're patient. So, but I thought that was, I about fell out of my chair. I thought it was pretty funny 20 years ago, almost 21 now.
So the process is you have to serve, there's obviously some breach, usually lack of payment, but doesn't have to be. Then you have to send a letter, how many days you have to wait between sending the letter and taking the next action?
Depending on the county.
In the county.
If it's in a larger county that's governed by fair housing, we can do it immediately.
I see.
Rural counties is 14 days.
Okay. What happens after?
The attorney has to serve them. Now that is we want them hand served from the attorney. That means they're aware of it. They know they have to be in court, and it makes the process faster.
Serving is for actual when you start the court proceeding, the eviction court proceeding.
Yeah, the attorney will have a summons put in their hands.
Gotcha. Okay. And now there's a court proceeding set up for a certain date. They may or may not show. They may, if they show, claim their case. Is it usually who usually goes to this proceeding? Who usually represents either party?
Well, our attorney's there representing us, and then usually somebody from the office will go to represent, if we have to get on the stand or whatever. Then the importance of us getting them served, if they don't show up to court, they've been hand served, they're aware, we can get a monetary judgment. If they're not hand served and it's just posted, then we have to go back again to try to serve them to get a monetary. But we can get possession without hand serving.
So of court proceeding, the judge basically provides possession back to you, the owner, and let's just say they're still at the house.
10 days from when the judge says possession given, he gives them 10 days to vacate. Okay. If they hadn't. So in Tennessee, for instance, compared to California especially, it's a pretty quick process.
Okay. So I see a lot of the time wasted here is just waiting for protocol to take place. It's not necessarily a queue. You have to wait, until your court date is up. It's more like, okay, we have to serving time and we have to do 10 days and so on and so forth. Now, assuming we got possession, they got 10 days and they did not move out by themselves.
Then we have to set them out, which is we go back and get another writ, and the sheriff will meet us over there, and we'll have a crew set them out in the street, literally.
Literally, gotcha. Okay.
So, or sometimes the crew will take, if there's stuff in there, and put it in storage, and they'll have to pay to get it out.
Got it. So if there is stuff, a crew, basically a moving crew, is taking everything.
Basically.
He's not leaving it on the curb. It's actually into the truck, into the storage.
We do both, depending. If it's a full house and the people are still living there, the movers will take it away. The extraction crew, I call them. And if it's just a little stuff, we'll set it on the curb and the trash people will come get it.
I see. Okay. Gotcha. Now, what are the consequences, or what other resource I, as the owner, have in my possession? Let's just say they made some damages, or it took a long while until they got evicted fully out of the house and was out of pocket. Can I use the security deposit to cover some of the rent loss?
Yes. Well, what happens if we're in the eviction process? They've lost their deposit. So that deposit's going toward the last charge, which is usually rent and damage. So if we're evicting them, then that we're going to have to either set them out or it's not going to be clean. So all of that money will be used toward that. If there's more than the security deposit will cover, the attorney will go back in and get another judgment for damages once we have completed cleanup and the turn of the unit. And we'll say, all right, to the lawyer, here's the bills where we spent $1,000 turning the unit. He'll go to court. Excuse me. He'll go to court and get another judgment, which goes on their record, just like this gentleman that paid us this money from 2020. It sits out there, whether they're buying a house, a car, or whatever, and at some point they're going to want to come back and pay. So the more information we can get through the legal system, the quicker they usually come back and pay.
Now, when you evict someone, are you reporting that person to some general database that I can, as another property manager or even an owner, can tap into when I do screening? Is there somewhere of people being reported to?
Well, once it goes through the court system, just like when we screen, we talked about earlier that we look at, have they ever been evicted or convicted, or do they owe a previous landlord? So the court system has a database they send this stuff to, and our screening process pulls from that. I don't think there's just one. I mean, I'm sure there's services that y'all could subscribe to at a cost,
right,
to do that. But the way we use it and the service we use, it's nationwide. It goes through and looks, if you moved here from Maine or California, we're going to be able to see your history.
Gotcha.
And we also, just to kind of go back to the screening process, the agents have to physically verify in writing or by phone their income, their employment, and their rental history. So there's actually some kind of communication, not just a report we pull.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. And they actually call previous owners and check on their
previous landlord, yeah.
Previous landowners? Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
That's critical.
Critical. Okay. Sounds good. Very good. Is there anything else me as an owner should know or think about, or maybe there's something you see a common mistake owners do, or a common question or misconceptions they have about the process, either one of those, that the leasing side or the eviction side, worth mentioning? I think we have a little freeze here. Probably come back in a second. There's a connectivity hiccup. Oh, right, yep, here we go.
I think if the owners will recognize that we're here to serve them, and we're going to do the best we can do to make them as profitable as possible. So when we have to go through these processes, it can be frustrating, sometimes confusing, because if the owner has a property in Davidson County versus Coffee County, there's two different rules, and and we try to advise them and keep them updated. But having said all that, is really to say, don't hesitate to call and ask questions to make sure you understand, because we're here to give you the best information available to us. But as professionals, we've done this a bunch, and as investors, you haven't done it as much. So we want you to ask questions, because if we get in a hurry, it's like everything else in whatever business they're in. You know, they're this deep and this wide in knowledge, and in this they're going to be this deep and this wide.
Right.
So ask all the good questions you want. We'll try to give you the answers. But at the end of the day, we're here to serve them and the investors, the owners, and even the tenants, to make everybody try to have as good as experience as we can. Knowledge is king. And so that's why we encourage everybody to pick up the phone and call us. Call me directly. I'm okay with that. I answer the phone up till about 8 o'clock every night. I know you do.
Absolutely.
At some point you have to cut it off, but I want to make sure that that we're servicing and answering the questions, because everybody's on different time zones. You know, we have people all over the world. So I want to make sure that we're available. At least I'm available to them if they have questions. So, but you know, going through the process of everything from getting the application, pulling the screening, doing the backgrounds, making sure that they meet the box that we've set up. And if there's a good reason we should look outside that box, then we're going to get with the investor and say, here is the issue, that, you know, this person had a health issue and they couldn't work, but their credits may be low, their income's great, and we verified these facts. Now you tell us, you know, that you want to make an alteration, but otherwise we try to stay in the box because it's cleaner, and we don't want to get in trouble with the real estate board or the feds or anybody else. So, but those are the things that we try to look at, because we're all human, and there are times in our lives that things happen.
So I want to kind of maybe end on that note and just say that from what I'm seeing on my end, has always to be with the expectation gap, or some preset notion that we have as people about a certain process. By the way, we may know how the process works just from watching some, you know, American TV show or something like that. And in reality, guess what? It's a little bit more complicated. And I think that's where the friction, or the not the friction, but maybe the misunderstanding or the disappointment comes, because an owner thinks, oh, it goes in this according to this path, and it's actually maybe not far from the truth, but there's more to it, or there's
always more moving parts.
Right.
And again, that's why I'm huge. As most of your guys know, I hate emailing, but I will talk to you forever.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. You're like me.
I think you can go through the process, and we can talk through it and answer questions. And it usually takes one conversation versus 10 emails. But that's why I think that for us, communication is key.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of emails, don't get me wrong, and text through our system. But me personally, I ask people, just give me a call, and we'll talk through it.
Yeah. You know, I learned, I got to tell you one thing about this. I spoke to, in the past 3 months, at least 3 or 4 investors, clients that, you know, some of them you know yourself, told me I would do anything in my power not to get on the phone and speak to someone, including one of the bigger investors of mine that you know well. Told me just last week, and I told him, you know, I could never guess that's the case. When we talk, I enjoy our conversation. You're a very intelligent person. He says, Danny, with you is different. I'm on a different level of relationship with you. I feel comfortable. Anybody else, I would do anything in my power to not go on the phone and talk. And I found it interesting, or kind of, you know, like, not surprising, but it's good to be remembered, because I'm like you. I think a 5-minute conversation would accomplish so much more than a back and forth emails. But few people just told me that the similar thing about email, about calls in past 2-3 months, and I was surprised.
But you and he have built that relationship,
Right.
and if they will allow people like me to have those conversations, it won't take long to build those relationships.
Yes.
And I'm guilty about not reaching out as much as I probably should. You occasionally call and go, "Will you call this guy?"
Yeah.
And that's okay. And that's what we do. But yes, I get that. I've got people here in the office. They'd rather email you than talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but hey,
Yeah.
that's the way some of us are. I'm getting too old to do all that.
Well, Ron, I wanna thank you for the information and the insights, and I think this is a good conversation to have. Kind of dives into those things. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you for enlightening us on something that I know kind of bugs people and they have actually very minimal knowledge about it. I want to take this opportunity to wish you and the staff and the family health and happy holidays. And I value our relationship that it's been going on for a few good years and a large volume. So I see it as you guys are being strategic partners of ours. So I'm glad our path crossed and stayed aligned in many, many ways. I thank you for not just for the conversation, but for being a friend and for taking good care of my clients. I think that's the most important thing, that I can see value from my end.
And thank you from all of us to all of you guys for happy holidays and the business and the relationships that have grown out of it. Many of your people that I do talk to on a pretty regular basis, I think you probably know the one or two I'm talking about. We've developed a great friendship and had them at our house for dinner when they've come through town, and
That's good.
so we're very excited about our relationship. And again, happy holidays, and thank you for having me, number one, and we'll do it again, I hope.
We will. I'm sure we will. All right.
All right, my friend.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Bye-bye.